And now, a Native Podcast with Matt and Zach.
Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to another A Native Podcast with Matt and Zach. I am your co-host, Zach, and with me, as always, is Matt Buddy, and I got to start it off as always. Matt Buddy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, man. Just getting ready for the heat wave coming.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah, it's getting hot.
4th of July, 95 degrees on 4th of July.
Ooh, that's going to be a hot one for you. That's going to be a hot one.
That's why I'm going to the river to go swimming that day. So
there you go. That's always a nice treat. Early in the summer, you're getting that Willamette, right? That's the river you're going to.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, but we're not here to talk about Matt skinny dipping in the Willamette. We're here to chat up with you, as always, Native American topics, news, issues, questions, concerns, comments, moans, groans, complaints, whatever it may be. Last week we talked a little bit about Indian economics, which was really exciting. Kind of learn a little bit about how tribes make money and sustain for themselves in this new modern era. Today we're going to get into gaming, but before we get into gaming, I would like to talk to Matt. Matt, you said you had an interesting, fun fact for us that you'd like to share with everybody.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard, man, but it looks like this will be the last season of Reservation Dogs this fall.
Wow. No, yeah. I just got the news from you before the podcast, so it's kind of surprising right now to me, but it is. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I mean, you see what Stephen Harjo put out with his statement saying like this was for natives, by natives, and needs to be ended properly for natives. I'm super excited to see what that may be. It's good to have some media out there portraying our native cultures correctly and properly, and working with native talent, with native directors, with native individuals, people who understand and respect the communities, right? Definitely exciting to see that do well. And now it's like, guess we got Resball, right? Maybe he's putting a little more focus on Resball. I'm excited to see that. That's very much anticipated. And then we need something else, Hulu, Netflix, Hollywood, whoever it may be. We need another native story out there. We need some more, especially in the pop culture market, the general market. I think Reservation Dogs did set a standard for the fact that like that native culture, that native humor sells. People want to see it. They want to watch it. And we fucking love it. So
I love how we all recognize a lot of those actors in there, but they use local people in Oklahoma. They have the native celebrities like play a role, like what's that, Dogface came in that episode, and I love when they throw in a random person. They're like, oh, that's that one guy, and they met them or know them, and Indian country's small like that. So
well, and I'm going to butcher her name because I just off the cuff, but everyone knows her as the Letterkenny lady from Letterkenny, Tanis. Everyone calls her Auntie Tanis because she is. She's everybody's auntie. Let's be real. But no, the deer lady in Reservation Dogs. Exactly. You have these awesome native actresses
to play that too.
She is, and she's a great actress.
The eye thing going on. Just a little bit.
She's great. No, she's amazing at what she does. So is Paula Lena and Brick. I need to write down their names because when you're on the like this,
dude, my favorite, because I identify a lot with him, is the cop. God, what's his name? He's Lakota also. Zon McClarnon.
Oh yeah, no, he's a good one.
Well, I love the whole Bigfoot thing and the conspiracies and the weird untrue
Well, and it's funny. We don't want to get too off the cuff here today, but it is funny when you bring up like Bigfoot and stuff and that, because those kind of lore, those kind of stories, the hairy cousins of the forest. those exist in our traditional stories, our traditional histories. It's not crazy for us to interact with animals or the spirit world or these other creatures, so it's kind of cool that they incorporated all that. They incorporated the shittiness of the res, the death of the res that you see, early on with them losing their friend. It's was great. It was great, and it deserves its time. And I'm sure one day down the road we can have a dedicated episode to reservation dogs, but not today. Not today, Matthew. We are diving into Indian gaming casinos. You always get that stereotypical question of people acting about casinos, natives making money off casinos, doing this and that. But in reality, these were ways we established our first tribal economies as ways to help be independent nations, to sustain for ourselves and to create resources for our people. And knowing that, essentially, I mean, frick it, in America, especially, we like to gamble. The sports betting industry, one can tell you that.
Yes,
but why not take advantage of that as Indian people to know that the overall American communities would buy into this and help support our economies in ways that we could in the modern world.
Right. And it makes a lot of sense why Native communities got into gambling, because gambling was a thing traditionally. It looked way different. But the stick game tournaments are huge. It makes sense why tribes got into the modern casino gambling and gaming is the traditional forms of that, the stick games, the betting on horse races during summer fairs and like gatherings, and it does kind of, it is a traditional thing that they did do,
Right. No, exactly. And it wasn't for, hey, I need more money than you, I need to be richer than you. It was the fun of it. It was the trickery, especially with the stick games. I think of like,
oh yeah, you're hiding
hiding these sticks and you're passing them back and forth with people of all ages. Like it's grandma's playing it with auntie and uncle and the kids, and they're clapping and they're screaming and they're chanting and they're singing, and they're all these different like things going on both sides of the room as they're doing this, and they're betting and they're playing the game, and it's intense. And I just think like the fun, right? The fun we have, and like that's really where betting comes into play, is it's the fun of it, of like, hey, let's make this interesting, let's put something on it, right? And to see that grow and to see that help our tribal economies, and then to see kind of, I think I don't want to call it the racisms against it, but just like the ignorances of people with tribal casinos and tribal gaming, where they say, oh, well, all natives have casinos, all this and that, and I think here, it's good to lay the law straight a little bit, and get into it and kind of understand it, for our knowledge as well as your knowledge, today. I'm going to go back, and last week, if you listened into last week's episode, we talk about this as well. I read from this same one. This comes from the National Indian Gaming Commission. Tribal gaming, as we think of it today, dates back to the 1970s, when a number of Indian tribes established bingo operations as a means of raising revenue to fund tribal government operations. At about the same time, a number of state governments were also exploring the potential for increasing state revenues through state-sponsored gaming. And by the mid-1980s, a number of states had authorized charitable gaming, and some states were sponsoring state-operated lotteries. Although government-sponsored gaming was an issue of mutual interest, tribal and state governments soon found themselves at odds over tribal gaming. The debate centered on the issue of whether tribal governments possessed the authority to conduct gaming independently of state regulation. Although many lower courts affirmed the tribal view in early cases, the matter was not finally resolved until 1987, when the U.S. Supreme Court confirmed the inherent authority of the tribal governments to establish and regulate gaming operations independent of state regulation, provided that the state in question permits some form of gaming. California v. Cabazon Band of Mission Indians in 1987. Congress took up the issue of tribal gaming and conducted a series of hearings, and ultimately culminating in the passage of the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act of 1988. Embodied in the act was a compromise between state and tribal interests. The states were offered a voice in determining the scope and extent of tribal gaming by requiring tribal state compacts for Class 3 gaming, but tribal regulatory authority over Class 2 gaming was preserved in full. The act further provided for general regulatory oversight at the federal level and created the National Indian Gaming Commission as the primary responsible federal agency. Enacted in 1988 as Public Law 100-497 and codified at 25 USC 2701, the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act establishes the jurisdictional framework that presently governs Indian gaming. The Act establishes 3 classes of gaming with a different regulatory scheme for each. Class 1 gaming is defined as the traditional Indian gaming and social gaming for minimum prizes. Regulatory authority over Class 1 gaming is vested in tribal governments. Class 2 gaming is defined as the gaming of chance, commonly known as bingo, which may include the use of electronic computer or other technological aids. And if played in the same location as the bingo, pull tabs, punch boards, tip jars, instant bingo, and other games similar to bingo, Class 2 gaming also includes the non-banked card games. That is, games that are played exclusively against other players rather than the house or a player acting as a bank. The Act specifically excludes slot machines or electronic facsimile of any game of chance from the definition of Class 2 games. The tribes possess the authority to conduct, license, and regulate Class 2 gaming, so long as the state in which the tribe is located permits such gaming for any purpose and the tribal government adopts a gaming ordinance approved by the commission. Tribal governments are the primarily regulatory for Class 2 gaming. The definition of Class 3 gaming is extremely broad. It includes all forms of gaming that are neither Class 1 nor Class 2. Games commonly played in casinos, such as slot machines, blackjack, craps, and roulette, would clearly fall in the Class 3 category, as well as any electronic facsimile of any game of chance. Before any tribe may lawfully conduct Class 3 gaming, the following conditions must be met. First, the particular form of Class 3 gaming the tribe wants to conduct must be permitted in the state which the tribe is located. Second, the tribe and the state must have negotiated a compact that has been approved by the Secretary of Interior, or the Secretary must have approved regulatory procedures. And a third, the tribe must have adopted tribal gaming ordinance that has been approved by the chair of the NIGC. The regulatory scheme for Class 3 gaming is more complex than casual reading, as the statement may suggest. Only tribal gaming is regulated to such extent. Non-tribal gaming is only regulated by state authorities. So, and that's the definition essentially of kind of the different types of gaming that tribal casinos can offer. And it makes sense because you take like a state like Montana here, right?
Right.
That I don't believe we have any Class 3 casinos in our state. I don't think that is allowed. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it is partly due to why you see only like I believe it's only the Class 2 gaming, Class 1 gaming, like the Keno machines all over.
Right.
There's also a law in the state of Montana, if you want to sell the liquor license or have a liquor license, you have to have at least 6 casino machines in operation. Yeah, so that kind of directly affects our tribes here in this state. So that's why you don't see big casinos on like on the Montana reservations, or like why wouldn't Crow put a big Class 3 gaming thing 45 minutes from Billings, right? How many people would go to that? Like that's where like the state comes into play, right?
Right. Well,
it
reminds me a little bit, even though there's differences between the two states, but it reminds me a little bit of Nevada as well, because they have these casinos in every little town, but they're not tribal. And those kind of negatively impact the tribes because
Right.
they're in these all these little towns. So why would someone drive to, wherever tribe to go to their casino?
Right. Well, and you're absolutely right when you look at like that, but that also why I think why you are able to see California tribes open up casinos on the Las Vegas Strip. I think that's why you're able to see Class 3 gaming happen in that state. I think that's kind of the same in the sense with Arizona, and why you see the large resorts, like the Sandia Casino and the large resorts, the A up in Vancouver up by you, and the different gaming kind of rules and regulatory things set up. I know people kind of question because I brought up the Indian Gaming Commission, gaming associate, or started out as the IGA, the Indian Gaming Association, in 1985. It is an intertribal association of federally recognized Indian tribes united with the mission of protecting and preserving tribal sovereignty and the ability of tribes to obtain economic self-sufficiency through gaming and other forms of economic development. The common commitment and purpose of IGA is to advance the lives of Indian peoples economically, socially, and politically. IGA operates as the educational, legislative, and public policy resource for the tribal policymakers as well as the public on issues related to Indian gaming and tribal community development. Located on Capitol Hill, IGA is a lead voice for Indian country, working diligently to ensure that the people of special status of tribes is recognized and protected when issues affecting tribal sovereignty arise. IGA advocates on behalf of Indian tribes with Congress, the White House, and federal agencies. In order to accomplish its mission, IGA often works with Congress and the administration on all Indian issues under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act and the Commerce Clause. So just kind of a little more history on these organizations, the Indian Gaming Association, and everyone who kind of helps all tribes in this, because it is a lot larger of a topic, because in the 70s, when the Seminole tribe first kind of got the ball rolling with this whole, we're a nation within a nation, here's how we can kind of conduct our businesses. And kind of to see where all that is and where it's at now. Another thing I like that the Indian Gaming Association puts out online, if you go to their website, indiangaming.org, they have helpful links. The Arizona Institute, American Indian Research and Policy Institute with Arizona State University. That's a tongue twister for sure. Definitely is a good resource. The California Nations Indian Gaming Association, CNIGA, founded in 1988, is a nonprofit organization comprised of federally recognized tribal governments. CNIGA is dedicated to the purpose of protecting Indian gaming on federally recognized Indian lands. It acts as planning and coordinating agency for legislative, policy, legal, and communication efforts on behalf of its members and serves as an industry forum for information and resources. The Center for World Indigenous Studies, CWIS, is an independent nonprofit research and educational organization dedicated to wider understanding the appreciation of ideas and knowledge of Indigenous peoples and the social, economical, political realities of Indigenous nations. The Department of Interior is also listed, the Department of Justice. The Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development is directed at understanding the conditions under which sustained self-determined socioeconomic development is achieved on American Indian reservations. The Harvard Project's central activities include research and the application of research results in service to Indian country. Indian Country Today Online is a good resource. They have stories all the time. The Institute of Social and Economical Research at the University of Alaska Anchorage, ISER, is devoted to studying economic and social conditions in Alaska. The Alaska legislature established the Institute of Social Economic Research in 1961. ISER has analyzed major public policy issues in Alaska for the past 35 years and has conducted numerous large surveys of individuals, industries, and regions. NCAI, founded back in 1944, is the oldest and largest national Indian organization serving the needs of broad membership of American Indian and Alaska Native governments. The National Indian Gaming Commission, the mission of NIGC is to ensure Indian crime and other cooperating influences to ensure that the tribe is the primary beneficiary of the gaming operation and to assure that gaming is conducted fairly and honest by both operator and player. NARF, the Native American Rights Fund, and the National Indian Law Library. It's the only law library specializing in legal practice materials, which are essential for practitioners of Indian law. Thousands of legal pleadings and opinions from virtually every major Indian law case since the 1950s exist within the NILL collection. Native Tech, Native American technology and art. This website is a wide array of information on Native American art. Native Web, the Udall Center for Studies and Public Policy, which is with the University of Arizona. And that's just a few from the Indian Gaming Association of some helpful links there that they provide.
Did you know there's a new native apparel company?
No, I did not.
It's called Shop LS 574, named after the 574 federal tribes and the Little Shell descendancy of its founders.
Wow, that's really cool, man.
It is. It is becoming a spot to order native apparel by and for natives, working with native designers and teams to help best represent Indian country.
That's awesome, dude.
For sure. Now make sure to go pick up some Native podcast swag as well as other native gear while shopping at shopls574.com.
Oh, yeah. And do not forget to use code ANP10 to save on your next order.
That's ANP10. Hey, Matt, did you know there's a tribally owned net company?
No, I did not.
Not only are they tribally owned, but Blue Ribbon Nets also creates totally sustainable products. With Blue Ribbon Nets, not only are you getting quality nets, but even eco-friendly ones as well.
That's awesome, dude.
It sure is indeed. Make sure to use code RUGAROO10 on your next Blue Ribbon Net order to save. Again, the code is RUGAROO10, RUGARU10.
I am definitely getting a Blue Ribbon Net now.
Tune in every Tuesday to hear your favorite native podcast.
That's right. A Native Podcast has new episodes every week, ranging from boarding schools to Indian child welfare.
Not only that, but we have Indian country covered from Maine to California and Florida to Alaska, Hopi to Blackfeet and Choctaw to Tlingit, and all those Crees in between.
And all you other natives and non-natives out there, we want to remind you to tune in this Tuesday to A Native Podcast.
Is your res runner in need of new lights? Well, look no further than our friends at Oxteo, an industry leader in LED lights. Make sure to use code RUGAROO on your next set of lights. That's RUGARU.
Kind of to get into a little history here, with we talked about the 1970s and the Seminoles, right? And kind of how it began. So the first Indian, and this comes from Britannica, is the resource. The first Indian casino was built in Florida by the Seminole tribe, which opened a successful high-stakes bingo parlor in 1979. Other indigenous nations quickly followed suit, and by 2000, more than 150 tribes in 24 states had opened casino or bingo operations on the reservation. The first years of the 21st century saw precipitous growth. By 2005, annual revenues had reached more than $22 billion, and the Indian gaming accounted for about 25% of all legal gambling receipts in the U.S. This was about the same amount generated by the country's state lotteries, somewhat less than about 40% share generated by commercial casinos in Nevada, Florida, and New Jersey. Notably, and unlike gambling operations run by non-Indians, tribal casinos are required by law to contribute a percentage of their annual revenue to state-controlled trust funds. These funds are then distributed to local communities to offset costs related by the subsidiary effects of the tribal gaming operations, such as the expansion or maintenance of transportation, electrical or sewage systems, and other forms of infrastructure. The need for increased traffic patrols and treatment for gambling addiction. Some of these funds are also distributed as an assistance to tribes that do not have gaming operations. The prosperity of Indian gaming operations depend on a great extent on the location. Those near or in major urban areas can be very successful, while those in remote areas where most reservations are located tend to generate much less revenue. Although tribes with successful operations have been able to use gaming income to improve general health, education, cultural well-being of their members, many Indian casinos have not made significant profits. Thus, the success of some operations on some reservations cannot be generalized to all casinos or elevations. To the contrary, U.S. Census data consistently indicates that the legalization of Indian gaming has not affected the indigenous population in Agarit. Native Americans remain the most impoverished and underprivileged minority community in the United States. Indian gaming has been at the center of political controversy since the late 1970s, and in many cases, the debate has revolved around the morality or immorality of gambling. This issue, of course, is not unique to Indian gaming in particular. Controversies involving Indian gaming operations per se have generally focused on instead whether the unique legal status of tribes, which allows them for the privilege of owning and operating such businesses, should be retained or discontinued, whether Indians have sufficient acumen or training to run such businesses, whether engaged in entrepreneurial capitalism inherently undercuts indigenous ethnic identities, and whether gaming is a desirable addition to a specific local economy. And that kind of goes right into tribal sovereignty and the sense of how we have these inherent rights to operate these type of businesses and business structures, right?
It's interesting because all this reminds me of like just how a lot of non-natives assume that tribes are doing well. Oh, you got casinos, so you must get money, and like, which is again the case for some of the smaller tribes near urban areas. But
even how the casinos spend money and what it gets spent towards and where it goes, and ultimately, like, how much do they really make, especially if they're giving a percentage away to the state?
How much is it going to community members, or is it going to tribal services too? Because like some don't do a per cap, some tribes don't do so.
And that's the thing, and that's where you get money from your tribe, right? It's the per cap you're talking about. There is the fact of like, yeah, you have a check that comes from your tribe because you're a member of that tribe, because that tribe is doing so well. Well, in the percentage of tribes doing so well, it's just like anything in the world, right? There's the 1%, the 2%, the 10%, this percent, right? Like, there's the wealthy and then there's the poor, no matter who you are in Indian country, right? There's a spectrum. There's light-skinned natives and there's dark-skinned natives. There's a spectrum. And I think that's the coolest part is we're unique and we come together on these topics and these things because we had a government essentially try and take that culture away and succeed in some ways. You look down in Mexico and the fact that like there's no reservations down there. They didn't let the tribal people really practice their cultures. And it's scary to think that like that only happened 200 years ago with these controlling entities of North America. It's glad that we're still here and we're able to unite and have some of our lands across Turtle Island still and be able to stand up for them and to have these operations on those lands. Which I like.
Yeah. And I think like we're talking about like tribes and money, and we kind of know as native people know that, oh, Shakopee's doing well, and San Manuel, just some,
Muckleshoot, huh?
Yeah, like we know they're kind of doing well, and we know that San Carlos and Pine Ridge might not be doing so well,
Right. But we got to understand and know as Native people, as Indian people, as Indian country, to support that, to see that the Muckleshoot and the success of them they're able to sponsor a national NHL hockey organization, right? With some of that money, probably from Emerald Downs Casino, I believe is there right there in Seattle, I believe.
Right. I really think a crucial area for the tribes, the ones that aren't doing well with just the casino, is going into those other economic.
Well, and you said with Pine Ridge, example, like Tonka Bar, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Which makes sense. But that was last week. This week, we're talking gaming. And I found on Wikipedia, I know, right? Gross. No, but
everything.
It's a good start. It's one of those resources when you're jumping from page to page on the internet and you're finding all these sources, you're talking about these topics, you're trying to understand them and do the research. And that's essentially what we're doing. Me and Matt in our free time, we like to take the time and do the research on these topics and share that research with you guys, because this is a topic we care about. We're doing this for free. This is me and Matt sitting down on our computers at the end of the workday and saying, these are topics we want to talk about. So I'm essentially looking at this as sharing our research and our information with you. And part of that research is these sources. And this source is Wikipedia. And I know people have their mixed things, but it's a good start. It's a good start. Pacific Northwest, and because you're looking at 500 articles, right? This is the first one.
Oh,
uh, Pacific Northwest gambling. Indian gaming became the focus for many tribes in efforts to retrieve their sovereignty and economic independence. Native American tribes went through vast political, economical, and social change after the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act of 1988. Non-Native Americans instituted their politics and forced Native Americans onto small reservations. Casino and bingo halls had provided funding for housing, medical and social services, education, and other resources for the Native American tribes. Funds derived from the gambling have advanced Native Americans. However, Native Americans have compromised for their wants because of the set provisions forced by the Native Americans by the federal government. The first provision enforced was by the state has to approve the form of gambling that is or gaming that is conducted. The second provision was the state and reservations had to agree on where to build each casino. The third provision required the tribe to develop gaming ordinances to be approved by the chairman of the National Indian Gaming Commission. The Puyallup tribe's casino advanced tribal agencies majorly. The Emerald Queen Casino. Oh, that's Emerald Queen is Puyallup. The Emerald Queen Casino's earnings enabled the tribe to preserve their culture. That's essentially the Pacific Northwest. And then they have kind of just these different organizations. California, the largest casino in the state of California is the Pechanga Band Casino in Temecula. But they talk about Oklahoma gaming, Connecticut gaming, Idaho gaming, Indiana gaming, Minnesota gaming, Florida gaming, right?
that is interesting though, with how the states will vary slightly in their policies and how they carry out the gambling there. So
right. And that's why I say Wikipedia is a good jumping point. It's a good starting point because you run into issues like this with them. They kind of wanted to talk about it, but they didn't. They wanted to bring up some specific examples. But I have a better here with playusa.com. They have a article that was written by Martin Harris, Tribal Casinos in the U.S., right? Alabama has one gaming tribe with 3 tribal casinos. Alaska has 2 with 2. Arizona has 16 with 26. California has 68 with 77 casinos. Colorado has 2 with 2. Connecticut has 2 with 2. Florida has 2 with 7. Idaho has 4 with 10. Indiana has 1 with 1. Iowa 3 with 4. Kansas 5 with 6. Louisiana 4 with 5. Michigan 12 with 24. Minnesota 11 with 40. Mississippi 1 with 3, Montana 6 with 13, Nebraska 4 with 5, Nevada 2 with 4, New Mexico 14 with 27, New York 4 with 16, North Carolina 1 with 3, North Dakota 5 with 12, Oklahoma 32 with 140, Oregon 8 with 10, South Dakota 8 with 13, Texas 2 with 2, Washington 24 with 36, Wisconsin 11 through 27, Wyoming with 2 tribes with 4 casinos. It's interesting. You look at that. California has the most with 68. Oklahoma has the most casinos with 140. With that 68 gaming tribes in California, which makes sense. There's a lot of tribes in California. And that's kind of where I was trying to go, I guess, with the Wikipedia article is the fact that, like, kind of where you were diving into is the fact that these states each have these different arrangements and agreements of what is allowed, what isn't allowed within the state, without, outside of the state. That's I think why you also see non-tribal casinos in places like California as well.
Well, we saw some there in San Jose, and I remember we're driving, and Zach was like, "Hey, look those up. See if a tribe manages." And there was no tribal management under those.
Right. So it would make sense why you'd have if the state or whoever the state approves to run those, that they would allow like you look at some of those California tribes, they do have some of the class 3 games, which is really cool and unique that you see, and they have some of the most bougie resorts out there, which is awesome. I mean, and you got to pat Indian Country on the back for that. And that's really where I was going, because you look at like even the East Coast and like the Connecticut, the strongholds they have there, and the Great Lakes area, and Florida, really the Seminole tribe and the Hard Rock Casino, and what that did for Indian Country, right? And that's kind of where I was trying to go with that, with the regions. looking at this, and this comes from 2016 on, so it's a little 6 years outdated, but this was California 8.4. That's the gross gaming revenue. Oklahoma 8.4 billion. Oklahoma 4.36 billion, Florida 2.5, Washington 2.5, Arizona 1.9, Connecticut 1.6, Minnesota 1.5, Michigan 1.4, Wisconsin 1.3, New York had $925 million, New Mexico 861, Colorado 833 million.
And now, time for music on A Native Podcast. Here we feature Indigenous artists and performers. This week, Red Shadow Singers, Eagle Song.
But I wanted to bring up one of the interesting topics that I when I was doing this research, what I came across, right? And this one sticks out to me because I like sports, and I know a lot of you guys probably like sports too. I know Matt likes sports.
I do.
So with the rapid growth of sports betting in the United States starting in the mid 2018 and has been well documented by the appearance of many new retail sport books in the commercial casinos across the country. Tribal casinos have been less quick to embrace sports betting. However, in part because due to the complicated nature of tribal state gaming compacts. Outside of Nevada, the Golden Moon Hotel and Casino and Pearl River Resort in Choctaw, Mississippi were the first tribal casinos to open up a sports book in August 2018. However, only a few other tribal casinos have followed suit. One reason they have not is because only a few states that have tribal casinos also have legalized U.S. sports betting. In New Mexico, the Santa Ana Casino launched a sports book in 2018, even though sports betting had not been legalized in the state. The Pueblo of Santa Ana tribe cited its Class 3 gaming compact with the state as allowing them to offer sports betting. A few other New Mexico tribes subsequently launched retail sports books in their casinos as well. Meanwhile, Washington state passed a new sports betting law in March 2020 that allowed the state's tribes to open up sports books. However, opponents to the new law have proposed legal challenges, which, coupled with the need for regulations and updated compacts, will likely delay the launch of tribal-run sportsbooks there. In July 2021, Congressman Lou Carrera of California and John Katako of New York put forth House Bill 4308, proposing that online casino play or mobile bets placed via services on tribal land begin to be federally regulated as tribal gaming. The bill would remove federal barriers regarding the offering of mobile wagers on Indian lands when the applicable state and Indian tribe would have reached an agreement. This comes as U.S. online gambling is spreading like wildfire, while the old school regulations lag behind. A bill like this would certainly help tribal casinos become more digital more easily. I don't like how that's worded. By bypassing exhaustive state-to-state legalities and instead of having a broad federal rule. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting to see because I've seen like Playbook and all those other sports betting apps come out, and you don't really see native sports betting because you could take I look at that like you could take like those South Dakota tribes and even like these Montana tribes, North Dakota tribes who kind of lag behind in the casinos because of how the state set up operations.
Oh, this would greatly benefit.
Yeah, if you were to set up online sports betting, especially because people already lag behind, and if you can compete, I mean, it takes a lot. I mean,
well, and I'm not surprised like that. I'm glad you read that stuff because I remember a year or two ago there was talk of all that with tribes, and now obviously the opponents come in and they're like, it has to be regulated. And I mean, that the tribes do get pushback too. So
right. I also here kind of want a cool fun fact. We're kind of in the fun fact phase of the tribal casinos. Is the largest native casino, if you'd like to go see it, is the WinStar Casino and Resort in Chickasaw Nation, Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
The Mohegan Sun Casino is number 2 in Connecticut. The Foxwoods Resort Casino is also in Connecticut, is number 3. Number 4 is the Thunder Valley Casino and Resort in California. And number 5 is the Seminole Hard Rock Casino, Seminole Nation. So it's kind of cool to have that. More fun facts. In 2018, Indian casino revenue neared $33.7 billion. Indian gaming operates in 29 states. Only 25 of those states allow Vegas-style Class 3 Indian casinos, and 4 allow the Class 2 casinos, which basically are just bingo slots. 38% of all U.S. gambling revenues come from 2 states, California and Oklahoma. So if you want to take note, definitely look at the California and Oklahoma gaming resources that are out there. Indian gaming provides 600,000 plus jobs, both direct and indirect jobs to Indian country. And it also pays $9 billion in taxes and revenue sharing payments to federal, state, and local governments. Say we don't have an impact. This
Well,
some states that don't contain Indian casinos: Utah, Hawaii, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland.
oh,
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, I think the Missouri one might not be true because I was reading, maybe there wasn't one there before, but the Quapaw tribe, they're right in the corner of Oklahoma. They manage one on the Missouri side now.
Oh, maybe it's
Yeah,
listed
I
as
just read
Oklahoma.
about this yesterday. So
Okay, maybe it's
yeah,
listed as Oklahoma, maybe, or
it's
maybe this
like right
article's
on the border or one of those, kind of weird ones.
maybe this article's a little outdated. It's 2021 is when this is listed. When you look at the 2022 US Today Best Outside Casino of Las Vegas list, there are 6 native casinos that hit the mark, and that's the Foxwoods Resort Casino, the Yavama Resort and Casino at San Manuel, the Pachanga Resort and Casino, the Mohegan Sun, Seminole Hard Rock, and Casino del Sol in Tucson. And yeah, so that's kind of the top casinos. I'm trying to see if there's any. There are some with Vegas, but that Mohegan Sun and that Foxwoods, the Pachanga, those ones seem to be top 5 casinos in the US when you look at the a lot of the other rankings. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say too, with some of these casino resorts, when they expand them, they add new things. They're starting to get pretty creative. I know, now tribes are managing. They're adding water parks. They're adding golf. The golf courses. They're event centers, as you said. We just drove by the Great Wolf Lodge, which we found out it's managed by the Chehalis tribe, which is a water park, and they're having some native conferences up there, like next month, actually. And so it's cool. Like there's room for expansion and new ideas.
No, exactly. I mean, and when you look at it in that sense, some of these casinos are some of the largest and some of the more extravagant casinos in the world.
Right.
And it really it's awesome to have that. I mean, it's awesome in a way to be like, hey, Native Americans, yeah, like we're doing that.
Quite a few in different areas too.
Yeah, not enough. We need to keep going to more. And then I know one topic when it comes to casinos, because we all saw the Palms Casino Resort is the first casino in Las Vegas to be owned by a Native American tribe. It was opened in 2001. After changing hands a couple of times, Station Casinos purchased Palms Casino Resort in 2016 for $312 million on the penny. No, the company then paid $620 million in renovation. Oh yeah, so double what they paid for it. Like other casino resorts in Las Vegas, Palms closed at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. This, amongst other reasons, led Station Casinos to list Palms for sale. In May of 2021, it was announced that the resort would be sold to the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians for $650 million. This sale marked Palms as the very first Las Vegas casino resort to be owned by a Native American tribe, and it reopened after a 2-year closure on April 27th, 2022. Speaking before the sale was finalized, CEO of the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, Lawrence Volslow, said, "It's the gaming mecca of the world and the place to be. It's a natural and good fit for us to have an asset there that we can send our customers to, contribute to the economy, and be a part of the Las Vegas community." Which is great. And then I want to say, 2 other tribes have purchased casinos in Vegas since then, right?
Yeah, I want to say they were all in Southern California, the tribes.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah, you got Pachanga, San Manuel, and there was another one I believe too. But you mentioned COVID, and it's like, man, some of these tribes that were more reliant on just their casino for economics, like they took a hit. They
Right.
took a hit those years, and now they're trying to, how do we expand? How do we like draw in more people to make up for that?
Well, right, because these casinos, they play a larger role in these communities, as we say, right? And to go back here, kind of the Muckleshoot have an example here of what they do. They're based in Washington. They have used their income from their casino to build a medical and dental facility and construct
wow.
homes for the elderly.
That's
What's
right.
even more impressive is that the Native American tribes often give large proportion of their earnings to charity. The Muckleshoot gives away $3 million annually to local governments, schools, churches, and nonprofit organizations. So,
Shit, man, they need to help us pay our rent and student loans.
yeah, no, right? No, that's funny. They probably do. There's probably programs for certain tribal members, and that's like exactly like that's part of it too. Part of the hypocrisies of the fact that it's like it doesn't necessarily come from the government or come from the casino all the time. Like you got to go earn it, and some of those funds are put aside for like
Right.
yeah, students going to school, people needing different types of home loan programs and assistance, retirement issues, elderly services and care, right? Like we like that money's got to come from somewhere sometimes. We don't necessarily think that all the time. And that's one thing is like this money that these casinos can earn goes to good parts of the community. They have good native people in charge of that, and you have some tribes doing really well and even going outside their native community and helping their regional and local communities as well, which is awesome to see.
Right.
Definitely something I like to highlight and talk about. I do also want to bring up that if you go to the BIA.gov, you can find a tab on the gaming compacts. There's 1,069 of them, so a lot of them. Every single gaming compact that has been written, so you can search by state, you can search by tribe, you could search by year. Right here, example, I can look up the Aki-Chin Indian Communities Tribal Gaming Compact, amended in 2009. So you can get a good resource, understand your tribe, understand your tribal region, your tribal area, your state's laws, in the gaming compacts that have been filed. Definitely worth taking a look at if you're interested into that. But as we know, all these podcasts got to come to an end. Sadly, this one was kind of a shorter one of our podcast, but that's all right. We kind of talked a little bit about Indian gaming in our tribal economies episode last week. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. As we talk casino today, I know it's kind of boring. It's kind of one of those subjects, but it's kind of one that we need to understand as well, as we go forward on this journey and understand what our native communities have been through here in the United States. So with that being said, Matt, what do you got? Anything here at the end?
Yeah, I think I'm encouraging folks to get out there, explore, try to, if you're traveling, try to support the casinos and their hotel. Try to, even if it's just you're stopping in for dinner, like, hey, we live somewhere and there's a tribal casino they've never been to, go check it out. Oftentimes they have really good restaurants and
Right.
eateries, sports bars, even if you're trying to watch a game, have a few drinks after work or weekend but I just wanted to share one. I've been to a lot of casinos, but I wanted to share one of my favorite is down in New Mexico, actually. New Mexico has some great casinos. It's the Buffalo Thunder Resort.
Oh, yeah.
And I like it for a few reasons. It's north of Santa Fe, little ways. And I like the name too.
Right.
And it's they host a lot of fights there too, if you're into MMA and that stuff. But that's one of my favorites, so that's what I have to end with.
Nice. That's awesome. That's always awesome to hear some of your favorites. I would have to say, I really like shoot. I like A-Lene. I like going up there. When I'm in the Portland area and going up to Vancouver there and going up to A-Lene's casino.
Sure.
It's a nice one. It has the Michael Jordan Steakhouse, like you're saying. There's some of these places have some really nice restaurants. They have some simple restaurants. They have cafes. I want to say there's one of them where if you just get like a fountain drink, you could a lot of them you can just go fill up like free sodas and pops all the time, which I'm about.
Oh, I know you are.
They they're fun to go play a few games. I always like to, you hear the people. I'm in some Facebook groups with like Glacier National Park. And you're always like, oh, I can't find anywhere to stay. I'm like, well, did you look at the casino in Browning? There's a hotel associated with it. Your funds can go help that community. And that goes globally, that goes nationwide when you look at these kind of things, right? Like when you're in Florida, stay at the Hard Rock Casino, help out the Seminole tribe, why not? Like go do that. Go even if you're not staying at the hotel, maybe they operate a campground, or maybe they have a pool or resort type aspect, golf course that you could go to and see and participate in, because these casinos are pillars of our tribal economic system, and they need to be, everyone needs to be reminded of that sometimes, because it is like, I know you see the negativity in gambling and casinos, but really you got to look at the positive of what it did do, what it established, and what it is continuing to do for Indian country. It's again, there's no one size fits all, right? You have poor tribes who struggle with gaming, but then you have, like you said, the Shakopee or the Muckleshoot, or some of those Southern California tribes that really do know how to whip these casinos into shape and make millions, billions dollars off of them. And then all props to them, and we should support them as Indian people, and we do support them as Indian people, because it's great to see the indigenous people of these homelands figuring out ways in modern America to continue their culture and to continue their ways and to fund those, because as we know, in modern America, that those funding resources are needed. But again, that's kind of all we have today for Indian casinos. I do remind you guys to check us out every Tuesday. There'll be a new Native podcast episode. So next week, please tune in. And as always, we're doing this in our free time, through the kindness of our hearts, through the education and research that we do, just kind of on the side, and we're sharing our knowledge with you, because we understand that there's a lack of that knowledge in our, especially American public school system, teaching, education, whatever you want to call it. It's not there. So however we can help share those stories and share that information and share these resources that we find, this research that we find, and really kind of lay it down for you and show you and establish what we can establish. But until next time, goodbye.
I know ballers, I know chiefs, I know riders from the east, I know educated natives down to picket in the streets, middle fingers to police, fuck you, we come in peace. I know red-skinned hippies that be giving me the creeps. I know beauty, I know beach, I know savages and freaks, and I know a couple cousins even bougier than me. No, ain't elite, bougie native, yes indeed. Art exhibit to the club, and we roll it 20 deep. Copper on my neck, gold on my ring, feather on my hat, skin stitched chin, 100 warriors on my back, they be drumming when I sing, man, there ain't no way around it.
A Native Podcast is produced by G&G Advertising and Quartz Lake Productions.